Okay, fine, let's just get it out there so you can all judge me. I let my ex Dylan put his hands on me at a party. There, I said it. And now Sean, my boyfriend of 3 years, well, ex-boyfriend now, I guess, has completely ghosted me. Blocked on everything, like I'm some kind of monster. But here's the thing, and you have to understand this part. It wasn't some torrid affair in a back room. His hand was on my waist while we were talking. That's literally it. But to hear the fallout, you'd think I'd burned his entire life to the ground. And can we please, for 1 second, talk about the 2 weeks leading up to this? 2 solid weeks of complete radio silence from Sean. He was living in our apartment like a ghost, looking right through me. God, it was torture. So yeah, I did something stupid because I just wanted to feel seen for 5 minutes. He pushed me to it. He really did. So you tell me, is this whole mess really, truly, all my fault? It all started over something so ridiculously small, you know. Something that should have been a tiny argument, a 15-minute "I'm sorry, you're right," and then back to cuddling on the couch. It was dinner. A stupid dinner. My friends, specifically Chloe, wanted to go to this new place downtown, Orsay, which is one of those spots where a single cocktail costs more than my weekly groceries. I knew Sean wouldn't get it. He's a planner, a budgeter. He tracks our shared expenses on a spreadsheet that gives me a headache just looking at it. For him, a spontaneous $80 dinner is like a financial betrayal. So I lied. I told him I had to work late, that my boss was piling on a last-minute project. It just felt easier, you know? Avoid the lecture, the sigh, the subtle disappointment that he's so good at. I went out, had a great time with the girls, posted a few harmless stories, just clinking glasses, nothing that screamed, "I'm lying to my boyfriend about my whereabouts." I got home late, and he was already asleep. I thought I'd gotten away with it. The next morning, the air in the apartment was different, colder. He was making coffee, and he didn't make me a cup. That was the first sign. Sean always makes me a cup. He just slid his mug across the counter and walked into the living room. No good morning, no kiss, nothing. I asked him what was wrong, and he just shrugged. Nothing, I'm fine. But it was the way he said it. Flat. Empty. Later that day, I realized what happened. His cousin had posted a photo from the restaurant right across the street from Orsay, and you could see me and my friends in the background, laughing through the window. He'd seen it. And instead of yelling, instead of confronting me, he just shut down. That was the beginning of the silent war. For 2 weeks, he became a polite stranger. He'd say, "Excuse me," when he passed me in the hallway. He slept on the very edge of the bed, a whole continent of mattress between us. He'd answer direct questions with one-word answers. How was your day? Fine. Do you want to watch a movie tonight? No. It was maddening. I mean, I would have preferred screaming. A huge, dramatic fight would have been a relief. At least then I'd know what I was dealing with. But this silent, passive-aggressive punishment was brutal. It made me feel small and invisible. I tried to apologize, I really did. A few days in, I broke down and said, "Okay, I'm sorry I lied about the dinner, it was stupid." He just looked at me with this blank expression and said, "I don't want to talk about it right now." But right now never came. It was just an endless, quiet hell of my own making, and honestly, I started to resent him for it more than I regretted the lie itself. I just felt so alone. I did what any girl in my situation would do. I ran to my friends. We had a group chat that was basically my lifeline during those 2 weeks. I'd send them screenshots of my unanswered texts to Sean, or just vent in long, rambling voice notes about how I was losing my mind. Most of them were sympathetic, offering the usual "he'll come around" and "give him space" advice. But Chloe was different. Chloe has this theory about relationships. She calls it benign neglect terrorism. Her philosophy is that when a guy pulls away and gets cold, the worst thing you can do is chase him. You can't beg, you can't cry, you can't apologize more. According to her, that just confirms his power over you. No, you have to show him that your world doesn't stop just because he's having a silent tantrum. You have to make him feel a tiny bit of fear. The fear that if he doesn't snap out of it, someone else will happily take his place. Juniper, listen to me. She texted me one night after I complained that Sean had made himself a separate dinner again. He's putting you in the penalty box. You can either sit there and wait for the game to be over, or you can show him you have other stadiums to play in. You need to give him a little nudge. A crisis. I was skeptical. A crisis. Chloe, I just want him to talk to me. I don't want to make things worse. It won't be worse, she insisted over the phone a few days later. It'll be a wake-up call. Look, there's that party at Mark's place on Saturday. You have to go, and you have to look incredible. Let him see you living your life. Let him see that other guys still find you attractive. He's gotten too comfortable. Then she dropped the bomb. Isn't Dylan going to be there? Dylan, my ex from college. We didn't end on bad terms, really. It was just one of those relationships that ran its course. We were still friendly, in a distant, social media-only kind of way. But Sean knew about him. He'd always had this tiny, almost invisible insecurity about Dylan. Nothing major, just a little stiffness whenever his name came up. God, Chloe, no. I can't do that, I said, but my voice wavered. The idea was terrifying, but also a little thrilling. A part of me, the part that felt so rejected and ignored, loved the idea of making Sean feel even a fraction of the insecurity I was feeling. You're not doing anything, Chloe said, her voice smooth and persuasive. You're just going to a party. You're going to talk to an old friend. If Sean gets a little jealous, well, maybe that's what he needs to remember what he has. Honestly, Juniper, you're just reminding him of your value. It's not a crime. It's just strategy. And God, I was so desperate for a win, so tired of feeling powerless, that her toxic little strategy started to sound like the only sensible plan in the world. So I went to the party. The act of getting ready felt like a declaration of war. I spent 2 hours on my hair and makeup, longer than I'd spent on my appearance in months. I chose the dress with surgical precision, a black slip dress that Sean used to love, the one with the dangerously low back. It felt less like clothing and more like armor. As I was about to leave, I walked through the living room. Sean was on the couch, laptop glowing, pretending to be absorbed in his work. He didn't even look up. He just muttered, "Have fun," into the air. The tone was the same dead, hollow sound he'd been using for weeks, but this time it didn't just feel cold, it felt like a dare. Go on, it seemed to say, show me how much fun you can have without me. The party was a sensory overload of loud music and laughing people, a perfect smokescreen for my mission. Chloe met me at the door, a conspiratorial glint in her eye, and pressed 2 shots of tequila into my hands. Operation Wake Up Call is a go, she whispered, grinning like a general sending her favorite soldier into battle. The tequila burned, momentarily silencing the anxious, buzzing voice in my head that was screaming this was a terrible idea. We worked the room. I laughed at jokes I didn't hear, and my eyes were constantly scanning, mapping the terrain. I spotted them almost immediately, Sean's best friends, Liam and Josh, holding court by the beer pong table. Perfect. They were my intended audience. The message would be delivered. And then, as if on cue, I saw Dylan. He was leaning against the kitchen counter, talking to someone. He looked exactly the same as he did in college, that same easy charm, that same slightly crooked smile, just a little more grown-up around the edges. When his eyes met mine, he broke into a genuine, warm smile that felt like standing in the sun after being locked in a freezer. It was a shocking contrast to the icy glares I'd been living with. Making my way over to him felt both terrifying and inevitable. The conversation was effortless, comfortable. We fell back into our old rhythm, talking about our jobs, our terrible bosses, mutual friends from a lifetime ago. He was funny, he was engaged, he was looking directly at me, actually listening to me, like I was the only person in the room. God, the attention was intoxicating. I was a person dying of thirst, and he was offering me a glass of water. I drank it down, greedily. After about 20 minutes, Chloe did a slow, deliberate walk-by. She didn't say a word, but she caught my eye and gave me a look. A pointed, meaningful look that said, "Now, don't waste this." My heart hammered against my ribs. Dylan was in the middle of a funny story about his roommate, and I seized the moment. I let out a laugh, probably a little too loud, a little too theatrical, and placed my hand on his forearm. "Oh my God, you are still the exact same," I said, injecting a flirty, breathy quality into my voice that felt completely alien. It was a performance, and I was committed to the role. He just smiled, and then, so smoothly it felt almost natural, his hand moved to the small of my back, his palm resting on the bare skin where the dress dipped low. And I didn't pull away, I didn't even flinch. I leaned into it. Just a fraction of an inch, a subtle shift of my weight, but it was a clear signal of acceptance. His fingers were warm against my skin, and for a split second, this entire stupid game wasn't about Sean anymore. It was just about feeling wanted, feeling attractive, feeling real. I let my gaze drift over his shoulder. Liam and Josh were still at the table, but they weren't playing anymore. They were watching us. Liam had his phone in his hand, angled slightly downwards. I couldn't be sure, but it looked like he was texting under the table. A sick, triumphant little thrill shot through me. It worked. Now you'll have to talk to me, Sean, I thought, a bitter taste in my mouth. You can't pretend I don't exist now. Dylan's thumb started rubbing slow, gentle circles on my spine. It's really good to see you, Juniper, he said, his voice softer now, more intimate. That's what snapped me out of it. The sincerity in his voice. The realization that for him, this wasn't a game. Guilt crashed over me like a wave of nausea. You too, I mumbled, suddenly desperate to escape the warmth of his hand. I made a clumsy excuse about needing to find Chloe and practically fled the kitchen, leaving him looking confused. It wasn't a kiss, I told myself, my mantra in the Uber home. It wasn't cheating. It was just a touch. A completely harmless, strategic touch. That's all it was. The triumphant feeling didn't last. I got home and the apartment was dark and silent. Sean was in bed, facing the wall, feigning sleep. I knew he wasn't. I could feel the tension radiating from his side of the bed. I lay down, my back to him, my heart pounding, waiting for the explosion. For the Liam just texted me, notification to light up the room. For him to roll over and finally yell at me, but nothing happened. The next day was Saturday. The silence was heavier, more suffocating than ever. He moved around the apartment with a chilling deliberation, avoiding eye contact at all costs. He made himself breakfast, washed his single plate, and went into the spare room, closing the door behind him. My anxiety was climbing, twisting itself into a knot of pure dread. The lack of a reaction was so much worse than a fight. My win from the night before felt hollow, pathetic. I had poked the bear and instead of roaring, it had simply vanished. Sunday was the same, a thick, unbearable quiet. By Sunday evening, I was a wreck. I was replaying the moment in the kitchen over and over, the triumphant feeling now replaced with a sour, creeping shame. I had miscalculated. Badly. The bomb finally dropped on Monday afternoon while I was at work. My phone buzzed, not with a text from Sean, but from my friend Sarah. It was a screenshot. My blood ran cold before I even fully registered what I was looking at. It was an Instagram post from Sean. His account was public, which was a strategic move in itself. The picture was of our apartment's entryway. All of my things, my favorite coat, the shoes I always left by the door, my gym bag, my collection of vintage tote bags, were gone. In their place were 3 neatly packed and sealed cardboard boxes. My name, Juniper, was written on the top of each one in his clean, precise handwriting. It was sterile, impersonal, like an evidence photo from a crime scene. And then there was the caption. It was so simple, so cheerful, and so utterly devastating. Clearing out some things I no longer need, ready for a fresh start. My breath hitched in my throat. I clicked on his profile, my fingers trembling. The post already had dozens of likes. I saw Liam's name, Josh's name, even his cousin's. It was a public execution. He hadn't just broken up with me, he had curated it. He had turned our breakup into a piece of content for everyone to see. He took the private humiliation he felt and mirrored it back at me, amplified for a public audience. I tried to call him, my hands shaking so badly I could barely unlock my phone. It went straight to voicemail. I tried texting. A single, desperate "Sean, please." It didn't deliver. The little green bubble just sat there, a monument to my failure. I checked WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, blocked everywhere. He hadn't just left. He had surgically removed me from his life with cold, efficient precision and made sure everyone knew it. I completely fell apart. I left work early, stumbling out of the office in a daze, and called Chloe, sobbing so hard I could barely form words. She was furious on my behalf. "Oh my God, that is so psycho," she shrieked into the phone. "To post that publicly, he's a manipulative asshole, Juniper, see. This is what I was talking about. He's trying to control the narrative." Her words were meant to be comforting, a balm on my shredded ego, but they felt hollow. For the first time, her us against them rhetoric didn't make me feel strong. It just made me feel like an idiot who had followed a terrible battle plan. Later that night, after confirming my key no longer worked in our apartment door, I ended up on a group video call with a few of our mutual friends, including Maya. I was a mess, red-eyed and rambling, telling the story in a way that painted me as the victim of Sean's Cold War and public shaming. Most of them murmured sympathetic things. But Maya, who had always been the quiet, observant one, just listened, her expression unreadable. Finally, she unmuted herself. "Juniper," she said, her voice calm and even cutting through my hysterical sobs. "Stop just for a second, stop." The sudden shift in tone silenced me. "You're not telling the whole story," she continued, not unkindly, but with a firmness that was impossible to ignore. "You didn't just run into Dylan. You didn't accidentally have him touch you. You knew Liam and Josh were right there. You made sure they saw. You wanted to hurt him, to humiliate him because he was hurting you with his silence. You used a public setting to send him a private message of disrespect. So he used a public setting to send you a message back. That you're done." The words hit me like a physical slap. The truth of it was so sharp, so undeniable, it took my breath away. I opened my mouth to argue, to defend myself, but no sound came out. She was right. I hadn't just been trying to get his attention. I had been trying to punish him. The final nail in the coffin came a few days later. I ran into Liam's girlfriend, Emily, at a coffee shop. It was awkward. She tried to avoid me, but I cornered her, desperate for any information. After a few minutes of my pathetic pleading, she sighed, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "Look, Juniper," she said, stirring her latte with unnecessary vigor. "Sean's not doing great, but the silent treatment thing, it wasn't about the dinner. Not really." She looked up at me, her eyes full of a pity that made me feel even smaller. "He told Liam that when he saw the picture of you at the restaurant, his first thought was about your dad. About how your dad cheated on your mom and lied about it for years. Sean said. He said he looked at you and suddenly felt like he was looking at a complete stranger, and it freaked him out. He wasn't ignoring you to be cruel. He was quiet because he was genuinely heartbroken and didn't know how to even start that conversation." And just like that, my entire narrative, the one where I was the abandoned victim, the one where he was the cold, unfeeling monster, crumbled into dust. He wasn't punishing me. He was processing a deep, fundamental crack in his trust for me, a crack that I, in my selfish, short-sighted quest for attention, had just deliberately smashed into a million pieces. It's been a few weeks now. The initial, frantic panic has subsided into a dull, constant ache in my chest. I'm staying on Chloe's couch, living out of those 3 cardboard boxes that Sean's doorman let me retrieve from the lobby. I'm on the phone with her now, listening to her detail her latest terrible date from Hinge. "Honestly, Jun, you dodged a bullet," she's saying, her voice bright and chirpy through the speaker. "You're free, think of all the fun we're going to have. No more spreadsheets, no more staying in on a Friday night. We are going to have the best summer." "Totally," I say, my voice sounding convincingly upbeat. "I'm so over it. Seriously, I feel relieved. It's for the best." I'm spinning one of my rings around my finger, a silver band Sean bought me from a street vendor on our first vacation together. But my eyes are fixed on my laptop screen. The glow illuminates my face in the dim light of Chloe's living room. I'm not on Zillow looking for apartments or on LinkedIn looking for a new job. I'm on Instagram, on a brand new, anonymous account I created last week with a generic flower profile picture and 0 followers. The username is just a jumble of letters and numbers. I'm on Sean's page. I refresh it compulsively, maybe the 10th time in the last hour. There's a new picture posted 20 minutes ago. It's him at a brewery smiling. It's not a fake smile. It's a real one, the kind that makes his eyes crinkle at the corners. The kind I haven't seen in months. And his arm is around a girl. I don't recognize her. She's pretty with bright, happy eyes. The caption is simple, "Good company." A single, hot tear escapes and rolls down my cheek, landing with a silent splash on the trackpad. "Juniper, you still there?" Chloe's voice cuts through the fog. "Did you hear what I said about that guy's shoes?" I quickly, instinctively, wipe the tear away with the back of my hand, as if she could see me. My own reflection in the dark screen is a pale, miserable ghost. I force a small laugh, but it comes out as a choked, unsteady sound. "Yeah," I say, my voice trembling just slightly. I clear my throat, trying to regain control. "Sorry, I'm here. Lame shoes, got it. So where were we?"